Hello there. I've got a story here from C.S.Nott. From a long time ago, when he was studying with Gurdjieff at the Prieure, Nott says, sometimes he would draw me out, make me say things, and then with a look of pity shake his head at me, and I would realize that I had exposed some weakness and imperfection in myself. These incidents, these constant shocks which exposed one and then another of my seemingly innumerable enemies within, remained in my memory. A day or so after we got back to the Prieure from the trip, he put me to work with 2 other men, digging a trench in the forest. It was pleasant working in the shade, and when we stopped for spells, still pleasanter to sit and talk about high ideas. A few days passed in this congenial toil. Then first one man was sent to another job, then the other, and I found myself working alone. Gurdjieff told me to dig and find a spring, which was said to be somewhere close by, the spring that he had spoken about 5 years before. As the days passed and no one came near me and no sign of water appeared, a resistance began to grow in me, a revolt against doing what my mind knew ought to be done. It was not the difficulty of the hard physical work. In British Columbia I had been a well digger, blasting every foot with gelignite, a difficult and dangerous job. What I had to overcome now was a revolt, a tremendous resistance of the body and the feelings to continuing this dull, monotonous, apparently purposeless task in the sweltering heat. After working for some days, I had dug a long, deep trench and a deep pit through the heavy clay. No one came near me, and I was no longer asked to the meals in the English dining room. Then Gurdjieff took my wife and some others on a car trip, which added to my emotional difficulties, since I enjoyed nothing so much as going about with him. When he returned some days later and came and looked at my work, his first appearance for 2 weeks, I said, "There is no water here. It is useless to go on." He merely remarked, "Must be water here. Must find it. Now dig here." He pointed to another spot and went away. So I began again. But a nagging thought tormented me. I wondered why I had given up my comfortable, interesting life in America to come here and work like a navvy and be humiliated. Was this just a whim of Gurdjieff's to keep me occupied? I fell into a state of discouragement and despondency. At the same time, there was an inner feeling that the task must be fulfilled, and that this perhaps was the first real effort I had ever made. A day or so later, after tea, I went to my room to rest. The physical posture of lying on my back may have increased the feeling of despondency. The fact is, I was on the point of giving up, when I reached out and opened the Pilgrim's Progress and read, "Then I saw that they went on all, save the Christian kept before, who had no more talk but with himself, and that sometimes sighingly and sometimes comfortably also he would be often reading in the roll that one of the shining ones gave him, by which he was refreshed. I beheld then that they all went on till they came to the foot of an hill, at the bottom of which was a spring. There was also in the same place 2 other ways besides that which came straight from the gate. One turned to the left hand, the other to the right, at the bottom of the hill, but the narrow way lay right up the hill, and the name of the going up the side of the hill is called Difficulty. Christian now went to the spring and drank thereof to refresh himself, and then began to go up the hill, saying, This hill, though high, I covet to ascend, The difficulty will not me offend, for I perceive the way to life lies here. Come, pluck up heart, let's neither faint nor fear. Better, though difficult, the right way to go, than wrong, though easy, where the end is woe. The other two also came to the foot of the hill, but when they saw the hill was steep and high, and that there was 2 other ways to go, and supposing that these 2 ways might meet again with that up which the Christian went on the other side of the hill, therefore they were resolved to go in those ways. Now the name of one of those ways was Danger, and the name of the other Destruction. So the one took the way which is called Danger, which led him into a great wood, and the other took the way directly up to Destruction, which led him into a wide field full of dark mountains, where he stumbled and fell, and rose no more. I looked then after Christian to see him go up the hill, where I perceived he fell from running to going, and from going to clambering on his knees, because of the steepness of the place. Now about the midway to the top of the hill was a pleasant arbour, made by the lord of the hill, for the refreshment of weary travellers. Thither therefore Christian got, where also he sat down to rest him. Then he pulled his roll out of his bosom, and read therein to his comfort. He also now began afresh to take a review of the coat or garment that was given to him as he stood by the cross. Thus pleasing himself a while, he at last fell into a slumber, and thence into a fast sleep, which detained him in that place until it was almost night, and in his sleep his roll fell out of his hand. Now as he was sleeping there came to him one, and awakened him, saying, Go to the ant, thou sluggard, consider her ways and be wise. And with that Christian suddenly started up, and sped him on his way, and went apace till he came to the top of the hill. Then I remembered Orage's similar experience here. He had felt as I did, perhaps in this very room. And now something constrained me to make more effort. I went back to my task, took up my shovel and pick, and began again to remember myself and keep my restless mind from wandering into daydreams, pleasant or resentful. I worked sometimes faster than usual or slower, did counting exercises, repeated lists of words and sequence, but the day still passed slowly and monotonously. One day, when I had given up all hope of finding water, results came. As I struck my pick into the clay, a spot of water showed. I dug deeper, and as I dug, a trickle appeared, then a larger trickle. With a stirring excitement I dug again, and suddenly a spring of water was bubbling around my feet. I stared in astonishment, scarcely believing my eyes, for the water was welling up to my ankles. As I stood gazing, it was as if a veil within was being lifted, a cloud disappearing, a light breaking through. I climbed out of the pit, out of the miry clay, and went to the house to tell Gurdjieff, but he was away. Gladness and joy bubbled up in me like the spring. I went to my room and sat down and picked up my Bible. At random, it seemed, I read, Blessed is the man that endureth temptation, for when he is tried he shall receive the crown of life. Turning the pages, I came to Revelation. He that overcometh shall inherit all things. I shall be his God, and he shall be my son. He that overcometh will I make a pillar in the temple of my God, and he shall go no more out, and I will write upon him the name of my God, and I will write upon him my new name. And he showed me a pure river of water of life, clear as crystal, proceeding out of the throne of God and of the Lamb. And they shall see his face, and his name shall be in their forehead. These words, which from my childhood I had heard and read hundreds of times, and which formerly had stirred up pleasant religious feelings, now became free of associations. It was as if I had seen them for the first time, and their meaning was clear, they have to do with not some far-off past or some far distant future, but with now. They are connected with doing, with overcoming one's weaknesses, with not giving up, just at the moment when greater effort is needed. They have to do with psychological processes of inner development, which in turn are the result of conscious labour, of a sort of super effort. The state of ecstasy, the glimpse through the doors of perception, the presence of God, or as we now say, the state of higher consciousness, lasted throughout the day. When the intensity died down, something remained, not just a memory, but a crystallization, so to speak. When Gurdjieff returned next day, he came to the well, looked at it, and said, "Now, I think, finish. This no longer necessary. I have other plans. We look for water in another place." The task had served its purpose. This was Saturday morning. The same evening in the Turkish bath, during the few minutes' quiet before we went into the hot room, he began to speak to me, seriously but with light radiating from his eyes. "You have done good task in Prieure. Now you shall no longer be just Nott, but Patriarch Nott. And you shall have a new name in Prieure, which shall be yours for evermore." We were silent for a time. Then he beckoned me. We got up and filed into the hot room. When we went into the steam room, he made me sit by him, and himself flicked me with branches after the ordeal of steam. At dinner I was put next to Dr. Cherneval, on Gurdjieff's right. During the toasting, when round was proposed, he said to me, "Now you no longer round idiot. What kind of idiot I know not yet, but some other kind. As the blind man said, we shall see. Now tomorrow I give you 3 bottles of Armagnac. Doctor shall make you special Prieure salad, and you take all the men and have party at your spring. Only men, no women. Understand?" I nodded. That night I began to ponder about a new name, and I found in Revelation, "To him that overcometh will I give to eat of the hidden manna, and I will give him a white stone, and in the stone a new name written, which no one knoweth save him that receiveth it." This is one of the mysteries of esoteric Christianity. The next day, Sunday, in the evening, the men met at the water-hole with provisions for the picnic. After eating and talking, someone warmed by the Armagnac began to sing a Russian folk song, one of those soul-tearing songs from the depths of the Russian heart, about nothing in particular. Others then sang Greek, Armenian and German folk songs. I myself sang "Through Bushes and Through Briars." Then Cherneval, a big man with a beard, stood up in his Russian blouse and trousers tucked into his boots, and sang in a fine deep voice, which made the forest resound. This, I believe, was the only time he was heard to sing at the Prieure. Cherneval asked me if I knew about Zen. "A little," I replied. "Well," he said, "in the real schools of Zen, the teacher often uses strange methods with his pupils to fix some teaching in them. Mr. Gurdjieff's reason for yesterday evening was to impress on you what you had learnt about doing. It had been a process of initiation, self-initiation. Gurdjieff had planned the steps in the task, and thanks to him I had accomplished it. He, like the gods in the mysteries, with his own peculiar and effective ritual, had confirmed it, and I had been able to move to another octave of being and understanding. From this time, my relations with him and others were on another level.